Welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network, coming to you from the TeacherCast studios since 2011. Join us each week as we bring you the latest educational news, EdTech updates, and hottest interviews with today's most influential leaders in education. And now, for your host, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and welcome to the Jeff Bradbury Show. On today's episode, we have a fantastic educational technology CEO, and today we're going to talk about the status of EdTech, where EdTech is going, a little bit about artificial intelligence, and what you can expect in the upcoming months in your school districts and classrooms. I want to welcome to my show today the CEO of a fantastic company called MobileMind, Mr. Tyce Miller. Tyce, how are you today? Welcome to TeacherCast.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to be here and looking forward to talking with you.
I am so excited to have you on the show. I got a chance recently at FETC down at the Florida conference to check out MobileMind, check out the booth, had the opportunity over the last few weeks to get to know your crew a little bit, talk to some amazing people. You've got some really neat things going on. But for those who aren't quite familiar, talk to us a little bit about MobileMind. What is it and how are school districts leveraging it?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for saying that about the team. We focus on really having awesome people around us, and we couldn't do anything well if we didn't. So very grateful for that. Yeah, MobileMind is the modern professional learning hub for schools. In a nutshell, what MobileMind does is take on average 7 to 10 disparate legacy professional development solutions in a school district that cover the whole life cycle of PD. And we consolidate that into one single solution that covers everything that's needed in the PD lifecycle, but it does it in a more modern way that is both very effective for administration side of things, tracking, but it's also, and what people have missed in decades and decades and decades of PD, very exciting and user-friendly and aesthetically pleasing for teachers to adopt anything that they need to learn within the school district, which is more important now than I would say than ever, just for a variety of reasons.
I completely agree with you. And, you've got a lot of instructional coaches listening to this show, people who are, in that professional development space. I got to ask you, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who put this together, what led you down the rabbit hole to create a professional development solution?
It's a great question. I would say, and I don't say this tongue in cheek, I think in my world, that would be God put me in a place that I was a very unique place I didn't expect to be in. How I got here sometimes is a reminder that it's the right place to be. And so I'll give a little bit of background on myself, and feel free to jump in. So I'm a longtime software sales guy. I'm not an educator by trade. And so I've worked for companies, whether it's IBM or SAS or ADP through my career. I've always been a sales guy in that respect on the software side of the world, mostly on the enterprise. In 2011, there was a big boom of a new industry called mobile device management. So as the BlackBerry started to really go away, we had iPhones come out, iPads really started coming on the scene. That had given birth to a new industry called mobile device management. You had the Android phones, Apple phones, or iOS. So there was no way to monitor, manage, and secure those devices. And I went and was recruited to a company called AirWatch, which ended up being the big winner in that space. We were acquired by VMware. I say big winner because it was one of those hot new areas that there was a lot of competition for a period of time. Why is that relevant? I got to AirWatch, my boss was the CEO, and he said, hey, I know we were going to bring you on for the enterprise stuff and all these things that you're used to doing, but would you like to build out the education space and build out a team there, and mainly in K-12, and there'll be some higher ed. And initially I was very hesitant to do that. That wasn't my background. At the time though, my kids were 5 and 6 at the time. I saw this technology influx as something very different. As often you hear the term paradigm shift, and that can be a little cliche, but I saw it as, no, this is a legit paradigm shift. Mobile and cloud technologies are pervasive, and it's going to change teaching. So fast forward, next 3 years, we amassed like 2,000 customers just in the education side. I built out that division, some other divisions within operations within that company. And what I saw consistently as a leader in that space, one, I learned a lot about education, but I was also, and I think fortunately, looking from the outside as a layman, not an educator, what I saw was the traditional means of training teachers how to do stuff wasn't working in the face of all this new cloud and mobile technology, the pace of change, complexity, et cetera. Nothing was personalized, and it was just very common sense to me. So we got acquired by VMware. I'm one of the only senior guys. I'm the only senior guy, I think, that decided to leave. And I said, I really want to crack this code. And I leveraged a lot of our good relationships with previous K-12 customers and started doing initially change management consulting and PD, personalized PD, to figure out what do you need in a solution. So I had seen all these disparate solutions that frankly were not attractive to use, that I certainly wouldn't use, and weren't based on modern learning like adult learning theory. So we spent 2.5 years doing research and development. I call those the blood, sweat, and tears years of really figuring out what the heck we were going to build. And then we launched the product as a software as a service in 2018. And what was great about that is it was fully ready to go, fully baked, and we've iterated on the platform since then. And I've had, luckily, I'll say this because you might say, well, okay, if you weren't in education, I'd like to think I've gotten my several different education degrees up to this point, but I had met some really sharp folks along the way. Chief Learning Officer who has her PhD in adult learning theory and her dissertation on innovating PD with technology. So luckily I had met some really awesome folks, was able to cobble together some sharp people and all put our skills together to build this very innovative product.
Well, I want to talk about that very special staff member, if you will, in a moment here. But I got to ask, what was it like making that transition from corporate world to edu-corporate world? What were some of the stumbling blocks? What were some of the success stories? What made you tip that scale to go, okay, let's move towards education versus I'm going to stick with, non-educational corporate?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a request. I thought it would be interesting. I wanted to build a team. And again, as I said, I saw my kids as young learners at the time. And I'm like, this is going to be a really innovative thing with mobile devices. There, as far as the experience, like a lot of government industries, and I'll be very transparent, there is a lot of stagnation. Sometimes there's lack of innovation or motivation on the parts of certain whether it's certain leaders or certain things you're trying to do. And the thing in a district, for example, and those have been some of the challenges. How fast can someone innovate when, as opposed to the enterprise, where, when I say enterprise, whether it's any kind of company, mid-market or all the way up to Home Depot, where you don't have things like change management, right? Where you have very low resources. You have an instructional PD team or instructional tech team of 2 people, right? And so how do you get technology in there, and they're managing 40, 50 schools, right? So how do you give them the right tools so they can scale themselves and at the same time make something easy enough to implement and scale without the normal resources you would have in a corporation? And that's the part, I would say, one of the many very difficult things about the K-12 space.
If you think about that journey, and I'm going to ask this question for every startup CEO I've had the opportunity to work with, consult with over the last 6 months specifically, they're all asking me the same question. How do you start? How do you get that minimal viable product? How do you first make that first pitch to a school district when you don't have anybody else that you're working with? How do you get, I'm not sure if the right term's licenses, but how do you get legal in all of the states? Talk to those people for a little bit, because I've had the opportunity for 13 years to help startups, but recently, because of my experience as a district level administrator, I've had a lot of companies asking me okay, how do I get in front of tech directors? How do I win that game? How do I even start that game? Talk to those people for a second. What is it like to first make that toe dip in the water of education?
First of all, you have to be confident, but also a little naive in order to break into it and have blinders on. Because if you really look at the barrier of entry to a K-12 technology company, the barrier of entry in K-12 is very, very, very hard. Okay, how do I sell something when they demand that something be on a state contract? What state contract? Where am I? Oh, well, okay, I'm in Texas, and this is what it's like in Texas, but North Carolina is different. But what's a consortium? And what's a reseller? And I don't have any salespeople. So it is very different than, and it is more, I would say government agencies are somewhat similar, right? So, but it's very different. Those are very different than enterprise. So how do you do that? For us, in my previous company, I've always, I think you have to have direct sales. You no matter what you do as a whatever you start, first of all, you can't develop crap. You have to develop legit software. And here's the reason why. And I'll just tell me to stop because I'll go on a couple of things for this. But the reason why is this: in the 1990s, you could sell enterprise software, and it wasn't cloud, right? So you could sell $1 million worth of software, but you could on top of that sell $3 million worth of services because it took that much effort, and you had all the people. Those days are gone. So what happened was the cloud made it very easy, and new development made it very powerful to make really cool software with way low costs without having all those services. So in a way, what happens is companies and startups, they come on, their only means of revenue is that software. They can't sell services anymore. And I'm taking this at a high level, but the downstream effect of that is that if you make crappy software, and in this world, software as a service is all based on your customers' utilization and loving you, they will leave. Or if they lose their fund, losing funding is a big one there, but they're definitely going to leave if you don't make good stuff. And how you get in front of someone, I've talked to a lot of people, and they'll say, oh, well, we're going to sell this product through the channel. Tell me what you mean by the channel. And they can't explain that. And so, okay, well, you might be in trouble. Now, channel's good. A channel's very, very finicky and difficult. When I say a channel for your audience, that might be, oh, I want to partner with CDW. And because I'm really cool, they're going to stop what they're doing and they're going to sell all my stuff. Wrong. They're not going to sell all your stuff, and you're not that cool. So what do you have to do? You have to find a way to do it on your own. And so for us, yes, I was introduced with certain channel partners. I had some relationships, but all of our revenue is well, and I say all of it, but primarily it's direct selling. And so a lot of people think when you develop a product, you've got to figure out how to take that thing to market yourself. And then how do you get into a CI or director of instructional technology or director of PD, director of innovation, and have those conversations? Well, you need to understand the value proposition, and you need to be able to have a conversation and prove. And this is where if you've got great words and then you show up with some different software, especially if it's innovative, if it's not super cool, they're going to get rid of you. And if you've never heard this term, nobody gets fired for buying IBM. Why? Because it's a safe bet. But you know what? Well, you may not get fired in the education space, but if you buy Tyce's whiz-bang new product and it's a risk and it doesn't work, you got egg on your face. So those are some of the things. And I'll say one more thing. It is hard to direct sell into the space, which is why you have to be so myopically focused on your value proposition. If you go in with an ambiguous, what's going on, you're going to lose them. And one last thing on that, the market entry point for us, I wanted to build a platform that would solve these problems, right? The whole PD life cycle. Platforms can sometimes be very ambiguous, right? I have a platform that does all things to all people. And if you can't articulate the value, you're not going to go anywhere. So what, in lieu of that, for folks asking, how do I penetrate the market? In this case, you want to have a problem to solve. In our case, we became a Google partner, right? And because we had some natural synergy, and Google said, hey, we've got 70% of the market adoption of our Chrome, our ecosystem, Google Apps or Workforce, whatever you want to call it now. But at the same time, we've got 70% sales, but only 30% utilization across our customers. So we have a better way to increase that adoption and decrease that gap. So when we went out to customers initially, they're going, man, we don't know how to use Google. And then they said it was super easy, and it is easy, but we still can't get our teachers because one doesn't know the cloud and one doesn't know something else. So we solved that business problem, allowed us to land and expand, and then iterate on our product to the point where now we're mature and people buy us for the entire life cycle of PD, where Google is a component of that. But we entered in with a very succinct message.
I love that answer. And I hope anybody out there who's listening to this as a startup founder, CEO, rewinds that spot, because that is so critical what you just said. Make sure that you know how to get into the consortiums, how do you do your sales job, etc. But you even went a step further. You found somebody, and I'll let you do the introductions here, but you did find an educator who's going to be standing next to you and help you. So many companies that I've had the opportunity with over the last little bit, I've always asked the question, are you working with a teacher? Who's your and I don't say the word consultant, like who is in your ear trying to make sure that you have everything you need? I've talked to CEOs recently and I said, well, like, are you COPA compliant? Are you HIPAA and they say, what's that? Talk to me a little bit about that story of when you met Dr. Amy and what she means to you as a company, as a founder, as as a person that's helping you steer that ship. What is the importance of having a tech person and an educator combined working together on this?
Well, yeah, great question. And I would say even more, I know technology, but it's not like I'm coding the stuff. Like you mentioned MVP earlier, I can speak to that. But I knew, first of all, you have to have, even if you're going to be bold, you're going to be confident, and you have a lot of faith in yourself, and I'm not saying I do all the time, but even if you are that person, you have to have enough humility to know what you don't know, because the first thing is, if you're going to be successful, you need to accept the fact that I'm going to bring people in that are smarter than me to do something that I don't know how to do. And if they can do just what I do, why am I bringing them in? And Amy, or Dr. Vital, we'll call her Amy because she would, want me to. I met her through a friend, and we were looking for some specialized PD to help consult on things. It was very clear her position on using technology to innovate on PD. And also, she'd been there, done that, right? She'd been in the classroom, so she's in the trenches. Then she's been at the district level building PD, cobbling together 14 different solutions to make the entire life cycle work. And then she came out and she took a risk. And I said, look, you've got the PhD. You understand this stuff. Teach me the adult learning theory. I want to understand it all. And one of the few things I learned early on with Amy was, the progressive learning theory, how adults learn, why it's different. And we started seeing all over the place, well, okay, but nobody's doing that. So I took her knowledge and all the years of school she spent, and we're going to fuse that into this software. The software will live and breathe that adult learning methodology. Why? Because it's going to work better and people are going to adopt it because it's the way adults learn. So what she meant to the company, I mean, unless I found someone else like her, we wouldn't be where we're at. It's very simple. And in the same way that you might have at some companies a chief security officer, if you're a cyber company, or we don't have a COO, but she's our chief learning officer. So she is the top of the heap subject matter expert. And that without her, we wouldn't be where we are.
I had a chance to get to know her a little bit at the Florida conference, and was just overwhelmed with how much she knows about this topic and how passionate she is to be able to help and support others. You've got this amazing platform that is set up to help schools with professional development. And if I put the coach hat on, if I start to address the coaches who are going to be listening to this, should an instructional coach whose primary function is professional development be nervous about a platform like MobileMind? Or can a coach and a MobileMind exist in the same school district?
Yeah, glad you asked. It's developed for that person and the teachers. I have not seen a district who has enough resources to go around. So if we talk to someone, and this is the thing, and I'll tell you, I've been doing this for now. These are the things that start to drive me crazy. On one, no one's getting replaced by MobileMind. It's just what's lacking is they don't have enough of the right technology. They don't have enough of the right process, the right approach. They're not behaving at the level in many situations as you would expect for training and change management and leadership in the way that they should, and they need better technology. And part of that too is the budgets in schools are so siloed, right? And so just quick anecdote, I think this just happened the other day. My daughter takes Latin, and I'm not going to dime out her school. She came back home one day. She loves her Latin teacher, and she's in AP Latin. And she said they're getting rid of Latin, and they've lost budget for Latin. And And she said, I find this just ridiculous because I know in every classroom there's a flat screen that costs $3,000 that hasn't been hung up on the wall. And I said, welcome to budgets, sweetie. And welcome to, this is how the bureaucracy and organizations work. It's unfortunate, but that's one of the biggest problems. So I've seen the best districts that work the best have the leadership that can sort of bring that all the way down, so that it doesn't affect other things. So a little bit of a sidebar there, but I thought it was interesting that just organically happened, with my junior in high school. But I think, no, we're here to scale the individual who runs PD so that their life is better and they're more effective. Let's just take one example. I've got 2 people. We're only doing live training. Okay, we do live PD sessions 8 times a year, and I've got 36 schools. Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. And you're telling me, and then and the other thing is someone's saying, well, we've got an asynchronous solution. So what does that mean? That means, well, it's a place where our teachers go and they look at videos. How outdated are the videos? Well, I don't know. I guarantee you 80 to 90% of them are outdated. How do they learn with them? Well, they just watch it and they click here and click there. No, they don't. They're not doing it as much. So it's just a very antiquated way of operationalizing learning in many settings. So my point is that our software is going to make rising tides floats all boats. It's not replacing anyone. It's going to make those individuals more effective, and it's make the teachers far happier in the long run.
I've been an instructional coach for 12 years, and I've always been in a situation where there's more to do than you have time. I've been an instructional coach where I was the one guy in 5 buildings. I've been the one guy that's supporting 25. Like, you're never going to be everywhere. And I've had the opportunity to work with coaches who have 40 buildings. Heck, I've even worked with a coach in order to get to their other school. I'm not kidding. Had to get into an airplane because they were up in the provinces of Canada, and that was how big the territory was. The point I'm trying to make is, when I want school districts to understand how amazing this platform is, you've got a 3-tiered approach. You've got the online component, which does one thing. I'll let you explain that. You've also got the Chrome extension that does something different. Talk to us a little bit about how you've built out the platform, and most importantly, why. Why did you build out MobileMind the way that you did?
Yeah. So first of all, my personal belief on software development. I've sold a lot of software. I've played with a lot of software, and what the worst thing in this world is when software doesn't work. And I've known for decades that the one of the biggest, if not the biggest indicator of a successful rollout of any software implementation is the utilization by the end user. So we're just using tech terms now, in this case, utilization by the teacher. And so how do you do that? How do you take technology to market to help solve PD, curriculum PD, and other technology PD problems? First of all, it has to be beautiful. And I'll let the end users decide whether we make beautiful stuff or not. I'm biased, of course, but let's say it has to be aesthetically pleasing, so you're not going to be miserable when you log in. It's got to be super easy, right? And it's got to be very rewarding. So what we did was we make very aesthetically pleasing software and map it to the way adults really learn. That's how we solved a lot of those things. So first of all, a Chrome extension, that's just, we created, well, first of all, that's just one way to log in, right? So you might have ClassLink or Clever, you single sign-on log in. If you use Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome, why is that important? You have to think of the minutia. If I have to remember one more friggin' password, maybe I'm not going to log in. So we want no barrier of entry. The learners log in there, and from at that point, everything needs to be a wonderful experience. In one of the cases, and I'll talk about one of the things that we've solved, and I'll use just a very rudimentary example for the sake of getting the point across. The progressive learning theory, which is the best way to learn something, says that the way you should learn something is by doing it as an activity. I think it's interesting that I wasn't the best student in high school by any means, but I remember studying the transcendentalists and the concept of huckleberrying and learning by doing things when you're out in the wild, so to speak. And I don't know, it just stuck with me. And so why is that important? Because when you're doing something, your retention is higher, but you need to do something in your real environment, not in to use an IT term, not in a sandbox. And then when you're done with that activity, whatever you do, ideally you want to be creating something that you can use later. And if you do it right, whatever, let's say you watch a video and let's say you've never used Google Docs before. We'll use the Google example since we're talking about Google. And this is how you title a doc. This is how you do it. This is how you share settings. What our software then does is follows the learner out into their actual software environment in real Google and guides them to do that. So what does that mean? That means you're able to create something they can use. So it's competency-based. The retention is higher, but then it also gives them feedback whether they did it right or wrong. And that can be human and or automated. That feedback loop is normally like if you and I, Jeff, this is how you do this, and you go, yeah, I did it like this. And I go, no, buddy, you just missed it. This is the way you need to do it. That's the feedback loop. That is what has been absent from all asynchronous learning. So we created a way to do that at scale so that emulates human interaction. And that's what we have a current patent that's pending. Patent processes are arduous, but we definitely earned it. But that is one thing that we saw early on. Long answer to your question, but how to teach. If a teacher who knows they only have 5 minutes a day, Amy will tell you stories of when she taught at Walton High School, 5 minutes in a closet was the only time she had anything to do. If you've only got 5 to 15 minutes and your PD session, and you know that you can log into something that will take you 5 minutes, micro learning, quick, but it's something that you can do and actually create and use in class, that's amazing. You'll do it. So that's how you achieve job-embedded PD. And that's what we have done rather than, I got to go to an hour on a Saturday or an hour after class, which is also retention is very low. So we've incorporated that new methodology and technology to have better retention and more adoption. And then we know there's going to be live training as well, which we infuse that all together. So it's a blended approach. But those are some of the key things that we do that nobody else does.
What does the back end of that look like? I mean, okay, everybody's got the Chrome extension. Everybody's working on the system. They're getting that live, but asynchronous. They're doing MobileMind, right? As a coach or as a digital learning leader, do I now have an analytics background that says, Mrs. Smith has been working on Google Sheets, or hey, the secretary is over here always looking for specific things? I mean, what is on the back end of MobileMind, and how can a coach use that data to then go interact with that person one-to-one and really take it to that next level?
Yes, that is a very, very cool point to bring up. And here's the thing. The first thing is, and I want to make another comment just about the state of the union, so to speak, when I talk to districts. We'll talk to districts and they'll say, well, we need more content. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? What content? Well, you just need more of it. Why? Cool, but just help me understand what your goal is. And oftentimes they don't have one. So you just want to throw more stuff at the wall and check the box. Okay, that is, and I'll just say this, that is apathy in its finest display. And it's ridiculous. And you're not going to move the needle on anything. And by the way, all that ultimately trickles down to student outcomes. So in this case, instructional coach, let's say you're an instructional coach and you're helping onboard new teachers, right? This is one of the biggest things we're bought for right now, because retention, we got to onboard people so fast because we got to retain them. And so many people have left, right? And by the way, first-year teachers, they're not leaving in the first year because of pay most of the time, because they know what, that may be later. They're leaving because of lack of support and lack of resource support. And so let's say you think of it as more proactive than reactive. That instructional coach has a mission. I'm going to assign a learning path to this new teacher, and I want to get them up to speed, whether it's new teacher from all the tech tools they need to learn, all the curriculum, all the way to bloodborne pathogens, whatever. I can assign them, everybody laughs at that one. I can assign them a learning path, have them go in there and learn all these things in a concise way. I can monitor that. I can have them complete it by X day, right? Or X date. And the analytics, the reporting, all that's there. That's easy peasy. But it's important to be able to give the learner something. At the end of that, now it's automated. They go through the steps on their own. You can monitor it. You may need help. You can go and be their help. They earn a certificate or a badge at the end. That badge might have an additional reward to it. There's all sorts of cool things you can do with that. And then that can be applied to anything. The science teacher, new methods in math, whatever. But you're giving a path, you're giving things for that teacher in their particular role to do and learn. And when they're having stumbling blocks, you can easily see where you need to help them and remediate on things that they need to get better on.
With every district having their own needs, I would imagine that the platform is built in a way that any school district can customize it, create things, an instructional coach can add stuff. Talk to us a little bit about how we can customize this to meet the needs of our users.
Yeah, so absolutely. So since we talked about content for a second, I'll try not to go too in the weeds, but creating PD, every district we know creates asynchronous PD in some way. They might do a video for somebody and then they want to put it out to their teachers. And then they also do live training and things like that. So we make both of those things extremely easy to do. It takes about 4 minutes to create a PD, a micro course or a video course in MobileMind that you can pull from anywhere. And then you basically can create a challenge around that and push that out. I mean, like that. And you can attach to whatever group you don't want to see or who wants to see that. And in fact, by having a managed solution that does live PD, meaning scheduling, I need to go to this room to do this session, you now have the ability, you can do prerequisites. Before you go to this live training, I'd like you to have these micro courses done asynchronously. Totally changes the game. So having that ability to create easy stuff, easy conferences, easy live trainings, and easy content on the back end is great. Now, the second thing is some people do say, well, what content do you have? We need some content on Flip or, whatever. One of the things early on that we did, we had a customer start to say, hey, man, we're creating so much cool stuff and we have superstars throughout our district. And we love the MobileMind way of creating content and challenges or creating courses, let's say. And can we share it with other people? So then we basically said, that's a great idea. So we launched the MobileMind community. So now every district in MobileMind can create their own micro courses if they want to opt in to share it. And then they can go out, search by state, search by topic, search by whoever. If they see a micro course or a set of micro courses, maybe they just bought Seesaw and they want some additional training. And they can basically just copy those things, make them their own and bring them in. And then the last way is that we took a different stance. I mentioned this earlier. We've heard a lot of this lately, and this is where people say, like I was joking about the what more content. Traditional asynchronous companies create content by we're going to create content and we're going to put it on a website. You cannot be all things to all people. You will never keep up with the pace of change of all this different stuff. So invariably, I've seen it a million times. If you're saying we're a content company and you can go we got a big library, it's outdated. Almost all of it's most of it's gonna be outdated. So what we said is, look, why don't we just go to experts? Our Microsoft courses are Microsoft. They created those courses. They gave them to us because we were able to wrap activities around them. Whether it's Legends of Learning or ClassLink training. So we're going directly to the people who know it right. And so this is like the legit training. It's not something that someone else has done on a website and called them a content company. Does that make sense?
It does. And you had mentioned something I want to pick up on, which is, the rate of change, especially in ed tech, is going rapid. You had mentioned that MobileMind started, correct me here, 2018, somewhere in there?
Yeah, January of 18 is when we launched the software.
So just as you were getting your feet wet, boom, the world changed. What was that like for that cycle? And compare that. This is going to be a hard question for you, Tyce. Compare that to the changes that we're having right now with the innovations of AI.
Yeah. Okay. So first part, I'll pull back the curtain and give you some inside baseball into my emotional state in that awesome period of life. For us, it was really crazy. We were coming out of 18 and into 19. Obviously, we had a reputation for leveraging, being a good Google partner. Then we became Microsoft partner, but we also had the platform. When COVID hit, everyone and their brother needed asynchronous training on Google. Everyone came to us. And the pain point for me in the next year was when a lot of those didn't buy us strategically. They bought us tactically to put a Band-Aid on certain things. And I'm saying this because I've heard it and it sounds kind of off for me to say this. We got so many, hey, you guys did such a great job for us. All of our teachers know how to use Google now. Thanks so much. Take it easy. Which is the worst thing you can hear as a software as a service company. The sharpest districts, and I'd say you guys, one of the things I would say to them, okay, what makes you think they've learned everything? And since we both know Google changes every 30 days what makes you think, and I'm being a little hyperbolic, but what makes you think it's going to stop changing? Why would you do that? Just as a general common sense question, that was one of the challenges for us. I would say it became very clear to see who the sharpest, more strategic districts are, who were in for the long haul versus Band-Aids. And then, we internally, we have a certain criteria where we go, pretty sure that district is heading in the right direction. And look, you have to do that because it's like we're dealing with 50 different countries. Yeah. And, so that's one thing. Lucky for us, the platform's growing. Our customers, we have a really good at this point, what we call lack of churn rate. And so as we come out of COVID, actually I'll give you here's the 3 years of COVID. First, emergency, right? Second, hangover, where we were dealing with people like, okay, man, we just want to relax. That was as a teacher or administrator. The third year was the exodus. The exodus is when everyone decided to leave the industry in mass. Not everyone, but so many teachers took off. So for us, decision makers weren't there. People didn't buy things because they didn't have someone to buy it, and teachers were disappearing left and right. On the tail end of that, all that stuff is, as they've come out of it, they've said, okay, wait a second. We need more teachers, right? So for onboarding and for doing grow your own, meaning developing your own teachers in your own school district who you didn't pull from somewhere else, that is a critical focus right now. And that is one of the number one things we're doing for districts because we make it very easy for them. And then one of the themes out of this is so many people, the Band-Aids, they bought so much technology during COVID because they got the money, they got it from the government. And then now they're like, we didn't use that, so we've got to consolidate. Okay, so I get it, emergency. The good thing for us is we are the consolidator, right? We bring all of your disparate systems into one on PD. And the other thing is that people, I say this often, if I'd started this company 20 years ago, it'd be out of business because PD is just, it's not sexy. It's just not, it hasn't been. It's sexier now because they've seen it. We can't just keep marginalizing our teachers with lack of innovation and training and because they're going to leave. So we need to invest in that. There are still people that don't understand that. But when I have conversations now with people, I'm doing less evangelizing and like, hey, no, I've got the new thing. This is really cool. It's more like, okay, we get it, right? Yeah. And that to me is very promising. But it will still, I had a district, and this is the part that it's free comedy, frankly. I talked to a district, and the guy said, hey, but we're only paying $5,000 a year for our PD solution. And I'm not going to name the solution. And let's just say we were more considerably. And I said, but not too much. So for your audience. So then I went to the site of the tool they were using. And I said, you just saw a demo and we talked about adult learning theory. We talked about creation of content, badging, certificates, tracking hours. This looks like it was created in 1998, which I actually think it was probably created in like 2007, 2008. I don't say that to be mean, but it's just reality. If you're the teacher of the year and I say, we're going to give you a brand new car, and I tell you it's a 1995 Toyota Celica, that's the way the thinking is. And I'm like, what? Nobody wants to use this software, right? It's not this, it was good at one point, but they haven't iterated. So if you've got vendors who aren't keeping up that pace of change, who aren't working on AI stuff, who aren't doing other things, and they're just collecting then eventually you're going to feel the pain.
Where does professional development go from here, right? Like we are in this age of AI. Clearly, we're going to see each other at ISTE. That's a huge topic. ISTE's pushing hard for AI. I'm actually now beta testing one of ISTE's AI solutions with a number of other teachers out there. Where do you see coaches, AI, professional development, school district learning? What's your take on the current environment?
Well, I can speak to just a few lanes, and then I can only sort of surmise on others. The things that I've seen with some of the companies that are out there doing, making the daily activities of teachers much faster, where instead of having to go to ChatGPT and say, can you please create me a lesson plan? They've already got, is it Magic School?
Magic School AI, School AI, there's all that good stuff.
And there's several others, and just where they have templates already or already done. I forget my language on my ChatGPT. But yeah, they can just click it and go. So efficiency, obviously we just talked about there's not enough time in the day. So that's huge. I think doing stuff like that is really good. I think AI, that's where you see an immediate impact of companies like that. And I commend them absolutely for putting this in the market. I think from a coaching standpoint for coaches, obviously, if you see certain trends across teachers and certain things with certain subjects, and you're able to, okay, what's the best recommendation I can do for them to remediate this or work on this goal? Okay, yeah, I can help you do that, right? If it's done in the right way. So I think those things, and then for us, going back to, we just launched AI Content Genie, and it was born out of, again, people saying, I need more content. So it's funny. I said about, this is an accident. This is not me being a prolific or anything. About 10 months ago, AI was, and I was like, look, when you're talking about like content and basic stuff, like that's going to be just done. That's going to be handled, right? Just like AI is going to take over a lot of certain jobs. So we decided, when people say, well, I know I can build courses in MobileMind, but maybe there's other stuff out there. Okay, great. Then just ask the Genie to do it for you. So we have, we're launching AI Genie, which you will be able to basically go in and say, hey, AI Genie, I need a bloodborne pathogens course that is good to go with Texas or Wisconsin or whatever. And I need it to be 4 multiple choice questions. And I need you to give some additional resources. Here's my email as the person that needs to be the point of contact. Bam. Searches YouTube, finds whatever creative videos or state creative videos, might come back. Oh, by the way, I need it to be less than 5 minutes long because I want short learning. Comes back, gives you 3 options or whatever, and you say, oh, that's awesome. Create my course. Boom. You've now just opened up the world of creation and content to a whole nother level. And so that is the way that we are using that, but we will certainly today. But AI for us in the future, I think, will definitely be pervasive on the coaching side, recommendation, analyzing what people have taken, and being able to recommend them based on their own personal goals, things like that. I mean, all that stuff.
I mean, the way that you're talking about your solution currently, where there is and I don't know if this is the right or wrong term, something that's tracking a person, right? Like they're looking at the tooltips and all, the Chrome extension stuff. Are we at the point yet, or are you at the point yet where you can say, okay, here's the stuff that Tyce is working, and in a single click, it'll do a custom PD with audio, video, show notes, whatever, per individual based on their performance or based on the task that they're being asked to do?
Not yet, but
not yet.
Yeah,
no, not yet. No, right? Like
no. But well, what you've said, and by the way, you're hired. That's a great idea. No, but it's more about the personalization thing that you said. So yes, can we easily extrapolate? And by the way, this is kind of one of the things I think we're saying before the show is that a lot of people will say, this is where I think things are going. Good luck, because I don't know where everything's going to go. But what I can do is make logical assumptions to say, we know personalization is extremely important to us. Everything in MobileMind is differentiated learning to address the learner at their level, right? It's architected that way. So if we're obviously making PD courses or creating PD conferences or selecting who should come to those live conferences based on their activities and what they should get out of it, all those things, that's a natural progression that's our new product is AI Genie. So we've already discussed the iterations where that's going to go. And there could be 10 other things that I just haven't thought of today. So where it's going to go. But I think that what you just described is an absolute logical and realistic progression in 18, 24 months.
Speaking of that, let's say that a tech director is looking at this episode and listening to it and says, how do I bring MobileMind in? What's the first thing that they need to do? How do they have to have things set up? Once MobileMind gets into their system, then what? Talk to us a little bit about how school districts get started with the platform.
Yeah, super. I'd say the biggest thing is having the right team technically. So there's technical, and then there's focus. Okay. And a lot of times that is the harder part, because technically, going back to my statement about enterprise software, the 90s versus cloud software, I mean, this is plug and play. This is like very little customization. It runs in the cloud. There's no footprint on their existing servers or anything like that. So it's so easy to spin up software. The only thing that typically we need on a technical side is we'll say, okay, you want to do rostering, meaning like we want to get their rosters in there so they don't have to do it manually. And that'll happen via ClassLink, Clever, or custom upload for us. And then how do you want your folks to log in? Do you want to log in single sign-on through some tool you use, or do you want to use the extension in Chrome or Edge? That's it. I just described you the entire component of that. Now, granted, I'm speaking at a high level. There's certain configurations in ClassLink or Clever, but it's really not that difficult. It's more for, do you have a goal? Can we help you? What is the compelling event? Do you want to increase teacher retention? Or increase retention? Are you trying to get a cohort of folks to get to a certain level? What is that? So we really want to help them ferret that out so that we can help them track that, so they can track to success. So as far as onboarding for that leadership team, it's an hour. I mean, it's Sesame Street simple to use MobileMind, both on the front end and the back end. So I think our job, and what I've learned, is that, if districts will accept that they can have some consultative help, and that we've been there, done that, and that we know what to do to help them succeed, and they let us in the door to do that, we don't really, it's not even like a cost difference thing, and they have a direction, that's where they're going to be most successful. I always laugh myself when I say this because it's a true story. So, but it's crazy. We had a district who was using us, and they came back and they said, we're just not seeing utilization. We're like, well, that's crazy. Let's relook at this. Teachers typically really engage with MobileMind. And so is it an onboarding thing? What do we do? Well, they're just not really motivated. You know what changed the game? Chick-fil-A. They offered Chick-fil-A to their teachers, whoever had the most courses done. The utilization instantly went through the roof. Every month there's a winner, and they get brought their Chick-fil-A. The reason I say that, I'm not jockeying for Chick-fil-A, whatever fast food restaurant of your choice. But the point is that you don't have to do that much. It's not like you got to pay people. Just think about it and put some strategy, understand human nature, and that changed everything.
I'm curious, and this is coming at it with the director of digital learning hat. As we get more AI into these softwares, do you see prices going up, or do you see prices going down for school districts?
So I can speak to, for us, let me speak in practical terms. In the short term, maybe up. In the long term, maybe down. And for example, our cost using on the back end of AI using some various tools, okay? We get charged on characters in, characters out. So then we have to calculate. So when someone types something in, and maybe we have choices for them, kind of like the templates on Magic School or companies like that, where we have templates for that, and then they can just submit that. But those characters, and each of these AI companies charges differently. So for us out of the gate, okay, we know I'm going to, assume there's going to be this much searching, this many courses created per school. We have to take a stab at it and say, all right, there's our foundational cost. This is what we should charge for that. So it is an extra. But if you think about, it might be 80% less than what you're used to paying for like some other solution that, So now the reason I say that's today. In the future, I imagine like anything, scale, pervasive use might drive costs down. And I think AI, just like, so many other things we use, is just going to become a component of our everyday lives. I mean, my phone is an extension of my brain at this point, unfortunately. And so I think the costs, I don't know, but that would be my assumption.
I could imagine that there's something out there where, at first year it's $10 a kid because that's getting everything in and out, the setup. But then the second or third year it drops down like $6 or something, because once AI takes over and AI is the learning thing, there's not a lot of human component behind it. You're just paying for the AI services to go in, but that's That's my tech director wish right there, as far as, somebody who used to have huge budgets to handle and things like that. I do got to ask you the question that I told you I was going to ask you before we recorded. This year at ISTE is all about AI. What do you think next year at ISTE is going to be? What do you think next year at FETC is going to be? A year from now, where are we going to be talking? What are we going to be talking about?
Well, a couple things. One, I'll just back to the AI thing. I think AI is still going to be talked about. It's a great company we've worked with recently, Guardrails, and I was looking at some of their templates and the things that are doing to protect students within their AI solution, and sort of call it, for lack of not to dumb it down, safe searches, things like that. If you're using AI, I think just more inundated into the everyday life of every tool in schools. We'll see if schools can handle that change. As far as, there's a lot of technology out there. It doesn't mean it's implemented properly. From a technology standpoint, I certainly think it's the AI train and some of the things we've just covered. There's a lot of other things I guess I could pontificate on, but nothing really impactful. I think we're at a point where I hope that you see the change across school districts in their normal behavior patterns have changed since COVID. Sometimes, unfortunately, it takes a catastrophic event and you just look at history, to increase innovation and efficiency. And I would like to think that people don't just maintain the status quo of school district does this, we do this here, we do this there. I personally don't think that's sustainable. And I think it's lazy. And I think there's so much cool stuff that we can do to really impact, and I'll say the public school systems. And I hope it's more of the change is more about the implementation and the direction, rather than just, I got budget, let's just put it here and let's move on. And that's just not very inspiring. So I don't know, not a great answer on any products or anything like that. But I mean, that's I'd say it's more about the mentality and the direction and the evolution of the public school.
You've had an amazing career here, going from the corporate world, being an entrepreneur, putting this together, finding the right team, building the right team. You seem to be making all the right moves. What do you think has been the key to your success?
Well, first of all, I do not consider it's more like survival versus success at times. I think that we have created, and I can say this because I'll haze on myself for a second. I'm a longtime sales guy who's built many sales teams, has a lot of success. I would say the greatest part of this company, besides our people, is our technology. So I joke about people. I'm like, I'm the sales guy who the best part about this is our software, and I truly believe that. So the team itself, the culture of our company, the buy-in that we have, the interaction with our customers, there's so many things, great people, mentors. One, my success, I can be successful about my wife and God. Those are the two most, certainly most important things in my life. But I will say this to the entrepreneurs out there, if just speaking to them, take my statement for what it's worth, right? We're not, we're still driving on, and I get a lot of my philosophy from the Marine Corps. And I think the big thing, and I tell my kids that from an entrepreneur perspective, and since we talked about them before, I'd say, you can fail, just don't quit. That's the big thing. Don't quit. It's okay to fail, but don't just give up, especially if you know that it's there, even if it's difficult, because it will be difficult. It's the same way whether it's starting a company or changing the dynamics of the school system. So I guess that's my answer on that.
Do you have a favorite story in the last couple of years, or a teachable moment that you'd like to share with us?
That's good, dude. I didn't expect that one. Teachable moments, and I will say,
could be a success or a failure, right?
Lots of failures. I think one, I'm consistently surprised at human nature and the ability to adapt and drive on. I would say one of the things, and let me just correlate that to something that's overarching that I learned. And let me put it as a life failure. And since I just brought up, and I've said this story before, but every employee at MobileMind reads a book called A Message to Garcia. It's not a book. It's like 20 minutes, okay? And it's this story about, and I say this, let me preface this one more time. I would like for school district leaders, entrepreneurs, everyone to read this short story that was written in the 1900s. And the story is, we were at war with Spain, called the Banana Wars. And a colonel went to a captain and said, hey, I need you to get a message to this guy who's our rebel friend in Cuba, the mountains of Cuba. And his name was Garcia. And the guy said, yes, sir. And he went and he got this message, but he didn't ask how he went there. He didn't ask by boat, by train. What's Garcia's middle name? Does he like cigars? Whatever. He went there and he got it done. And this is something, and so for me, this has been a really interesting take on society and culture. When I first checked into my first year in the Marine Corps, all right, so what's what is the moral of that is to get it done, be a self-starter, make it happen. It doesn't mean you're a slave to someone telling you what to do. That's not the moral of the story. Anyway, this editorial was written about it in the early 1900s about that. And to me, it translates into innovation, not having fear, figuring out new ways to do things. And I think it's a message for everyone. So my personal message, and the reason my personal life message on this, or my story, my failure, was I checked into my first Marine Corps unit. And at the end of the day, we were cleaning up, and the sergeant in charge, at the middle of the day, he said, hey, Miller, I want you to read this book at Chow. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. I didn't say that, right? Obviously. So then I realized there's only 20 minutes. So I read the book. And at the end of the day, he said, hey, Miller, why don't you take out trash for me? And I said, hi, Sergeant. I said, hey, Sergeant. He said, yeah. And I said, where are the trash bags? And he said, did you read that effing book? And that, I know that sounds silly, but that's that was a pinnacle moment in my life where I became very self-aware. And I think that helped me a great deal. And frankly, I hope that more of that mentality seeps into our school districts and everywhere else, so we can kick some doors down and make better environments.
We've been talking here today to Tyce Miller, the CEO and founder of MobileMind. You can find out more information over at mobilemind.io. Tyce, thank you so much for your time. Please call this the first time that you're on the show. It's been great getting to know you here. It's been great getting to know your team, and anybody out there in professional development or digital leadership, please check out all the great stuff over at mobilemind.io. It's a fantastic company. Tyce, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Jeff. That was awesome. I appreciate it.
And I want to say thank you guys for making TeacherCast your home for professional development. Don't forget to check out all of our other podcasts. We have Digital Learning Today, Ask the Tech Coach, and of course, this, our Jeff Bradbury Show. If you'd like to be featured, head on over to teachercast.net, fill out our contact form. We would love to have you. And that wraps up this episode of the Jeff Bradbury Show. On behalf of Tyce and everybody here on TeacherCast, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to the TeacherCast Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter @TeacherCast or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.